Many games are just pieces of software. Just some form of expendable entertainment. To the characters in these games, their worlds are absolutely real. What if they can actually feel? That was the question that started it all, and gave way to the creation of Machine Fable, a RPG game made by Neil Craig, who made all the writing, programming, story, music and art for the game. Neil wanted to prove to himself that he can do the entire game by himself, as he believes that outsourcing the art or music could clash with the musical and art direction that he created, and change the whole feel of the game. Every artist has their own vibe. Every piece of art has its own individuality, that you can feel through the art. The same goes for music. I want everyone to feel my art, through the game. Machine Fable's biggest influences goes back when Neil was only 10 years old, when he watched the in-made show, Reboot. The show centers around characters that live inside a computer system named Mainframe. It's easy to see the comparisons to the setting of the show in Machine Fable. Reboot was the first show that I saw that actually followed a timeline. Many shows from back then didn't consider time as part of the plot of the show, but Reboot had. The only console he owned while growing up was the Famicom. They had a limited library of 8-bit games, all of which were platformers and shooters. We didn't have Zelda or Final Fantasy. We didn't know that RPG games existed at the time. The first RPG game he played was Pokemon Blue. He was immediately hooked. It opened up a whole new world of gaming. Now, for the first time he could experience a leveling up system, save progress and watch your game progress over time. This was the pinnacle of gaming for him, even though there were way better graphically advanced games at the time. I had a copy of Pokemon Blue on floppy disk, emulated for PC, which I played on our Packard Bell. That game blew my mind. I remember thinking, I want to do that. And it wasn't until years later, when he was on Reddit, and saw a GIF for an RPG game called Oh Oni. Oh Oni was a horror survival game, created in RPG Maker, and had great success. He said that he saw the comments on Reddit, and one comment said that it was made on the RPG Maker system. He didn't know what it was, so he searched for it online. He created a Steam account and downloaded it. This was when he realized that his dream could be a possibility. After I saw what was possible, I started playing around with it. I had made several games, just to gain more experience. One of his first games were Burger Guy RPG. It was a complete random story, and was never released, as this was one of his test games. With having a background in VB.NET programming in university, Neil had an idea of statements, conditions and arrays, much of which RPGVX used. He realized that he could use these statements to check conditions and make instructions and control switches. After joining some forums and researching some more, he went all in. I remember thinking, I can draw, but I didn't have a drawing tablet. I got myself a Yoga laptop, for the sole purpose of using that touchscreen as a drawing tablet, but I just couldn't get over how unnatural it felt. So, I forced myself to draw with a mouse. It was excruciating. Neil used a combination of GIMP, Ms. Paint and CS6 for the artwork and some animation. The artwork was made using a mix of rotoscoping, freehand drawing and base model drawing. The animation process was tiring, as each frame had to be pixel perfect, else, the sprite would dance around on screen. I knew there were easier pixel art animating software, like Pascal, but I opted to draw, without a grid, on GIMP. Big mistake, but I got used to it. I can't draw hands, so I decided to use my weakness as a strength, and make bad hand drawings a part of the art style. Similar with eyes, some characters, I purposely drew crossed eye. I enhanced those features and made it a part of the art style. Being able to play guitar himself, Neil was also able to hear a melody in his head and transfer that into notes. He opted not to use the guitar, as he wanted more of a chiptune sound. All music was created using Cubase 5, and free VST plugins such as NES VST, DSK Choir and The Shepherd. I literally forced myself to learn how to use Cubase 5. Music was one of the last things I had to complete for the game. I spent many frustrating hours trying to learn the interface. Eventually, I got good. I heard the melody in my head, then quickly track and record it, then export, and then find the fit in the game. This is typically not how composers work. First, they find the scene then make music based on the scene. But with many scenes, he had made the music, with no scene in mind. But somehow, it worked. The story seemed to be a daunting task for him. Nevertheless, inspiration was found from various forms of media he saw over the years. Some story inspiration was found in the 2001 sci-fi movie Metropolis, as well as the 1988 movie, Akira. Tetsuo's transfiguration scene was especially inspirational, and the base for some characters in the game. Other inspirations include Fatal Fury, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Undertale. The gritty world and story of Lisa the Painful, the emotional roller coaster of To the Moon, and cult classic status of Space Funeral also served as inspiration. Space Funeral's art style and story especially resonated with him. I struggled with the story. Most indie RPG games that I played were of the traditional kind. Knights and Wizards. I wanted to make something modern, that didn't take itself too seriously. I must have rewritten the main plot about half a dozen times, before I tied it all together. As many artists, creatives and devs, Neil struggled with the notion that Machine Fable might not be good enough. This phenomenon is called imposter syndrome, and it could hinder, and in some cases completely cancel some projects. I felt the imposter syndrome at an all-time high. Just to see what other devs have accomplished, made me doubt myself, but I just kept on thinking, even if one person likes the game, I've succeeded. Neil created his Steam page and uploaded screenshots, but as many devs know, creating buzz around your product is very difficult. With zero budget, Neil managed to accumulate an abysmal 40 wishlist on Steam in 3 months. He posted on forums, blogs, groups, screenshot Saturdays, social media platforms and even IM. It created little to no buzz, but that didn't deter Neil. Only time will tell what the future holds for Machine Fable. Maybe 1 million copies sold, maybe 10. But what we do know is, even if you've taken the step to have your work out there, you've already succeeded at something. And in the words of Neil Craig, even if no one downloads the game, I know that I made something that I can be proud of. And to everyone who doubts that they can do something like this, I have one thing to say. If I can do it, so can you.